I'm Terri Murphy from the Women's Wisdom Network and senior editor for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, and the Men's Room with Murph. And today we have a woman that could just be in every category she wants to. Her name is Amy Stoehr, and if you don't know who she is, you will shortly. She's been forever, for 12 years, one of the top trainers, plus in the real estate industry. She was one of the original Howard Brinton Star Power Systems people. Do you remember those years, Amy? That was like when? That was back in the 90s?
Everyone calls it Camelot. For me, it was mid 90s through 2000, beginning of 2008.
That's right. Well, actually, I was Star Power 3, so I kind of remember that. It was best practices from best agents long before Realty Times or anything else. Today, you are a real estate coach for Real Estate Masters Guild and a mom and a climber. I mean, like, she doesn't just climb around, her neighborhood. I mean, she goes all the way to Africa. We're going to talk about the Kilimanjaro Kids organization, but mostly you help real estate professionals improve their businesses and personal lives. That's mostly your focus. And you coach inside and outside the real estate industry. And
I
you
do.
have for like forever, but the key to your coaching is really success, profitability, balance, and significance. Key word here as an operating model. Now that is unique. Tell us a little bit about what Amy does as a coach.
Well, I think it's important, Terri, to make a distinction. A person needs to know what they need. So a lot of people have heard of coaching. Some people have been doing coaching for years. There are a lot of different types of coaching out there. I run a boutique operation because I like to meet people where they're at and then help them figure out, get clarity on what it is that they want. That significance piece you mentioned is a part of that, and then map out a strategy to get them there and walk them down the path. There's no blueprint in terms of saying week 1, we're going to do this, week 2, we're going to do this. That's not how I coach. I prefer to have people who are interested in really deep diving on what's behind the choices they're making, in addition to how to get the business more profitable, how to grow to the next level in terms of units. It's a more holistic. I hesitate to use that word, Terri. I've mentioned this to you before, because when people hear holistic, they kind of think airy-fairy.
Fairy candles, little potpourri. I know,
yes.
It's so not that, because you have clients that have literally been around for 11 years. And in the coaching
Yes.
business, that tells you that it goes from coaching to consulting. Because when you create that kind of trust and collaboration, it almost grows into mentorship, I would say.
Absolutely.
Well, I know that you have been coaching for a long time, and people, like, they don't let you go, which is going to be a problem when you run off again to Africa. I mean, most of us go on vacation. Oh, we're going to Vegas. No, this one goes to Tanzania, Africa, and she does it with purpose and passion. But before we go there, I wanted to ask you, obviously your coaching isn't for everyone, but
Right.
It's not standardized. In other words, it can be biweekly, it can be monthly, it can be whatever you want it to be. And tell me, how do you determine that when you meet someone who's requesting some help?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, meeting the client where they're at. So it's really, if it were you, Terri, I'd start asking you a lot of questions to find out where is it that you are. That's financially, that's business growth wise, that's what's going on in your life that's influencing your business. And then we determine together what the best fit is. So you mentioned my client of 11 years, a fabulous man by the name of David Brenton in Indianapolis. He still coaches with me every single week because he knows that's what he needs to stay on track and keep moving forward and do the things he wants to do with his life. I have other clients who've been with me almost as long, and they're on kind of a maintenance mode. They want to just check in once a month and say, here's what I'm up to now. What suggestions do you have? And then they know that I'm on call if they need me at another time. So it's really more about getting really clear on what an individual needs, and then designing a plan and a way forward that makes sense for them. Frankly, coaching is expensive. So even financially, some people, they know they need it, they really want it, but they're struggling to figure out how they can even put that into their equation. And so we do accommodations for that too. It's
So,
what the person needs.
it's expensive financially, but it's more expensive to fail, or more expensive to be less pleased with yourself, because that doesn't work. But one of the things that we talk about is, how do you as a coach, because as a master coach myself, I can tell you, you can you can show people what they need to do to get to where they want to go, but that doesn't mean they can do it. And then you talked about it being expensive. I was going to say from an energy standpoint, it's highly expensive. It's sort of like somebody keeps saying, well, I keep burning my hand. So, well, that stove's going to be right there. What do you think one of your biggest challenges is as a coach when you're coaching someone that just isn't ready to accept the why? Maybe that's it.
Candidly, I get really attached to my clients.
Oh,
so
you think?
One of the things they tell you in the pure coaching model, when I got formally trained, Howard and I went together back in 2001, to stay detached and not attached to their outcomes, not attached to what's going on in their life. And that's just not who I am. You've met me.
There's no
I
way.
love on people. That's what I do. And
Yes.
So when I see someone not going forward and doing the things that they've identified are what they need to do to get where they want to go, it takes a little piece of my heart right there. And I jump in and dig in even deeper because I want it for them sometimes almost more than they want it for themselves. And then I've got to do a check on myself and say,
I've heard that before. You
resemble that remark.
Okay, just stop breathing for a while. And you're like, it's not going to happen because I'm going to love you whether you want me to or not. Okay. Right. So we've got that in common, and I don't think that's such a bad thing, but that love piece, that caring piece goes far beyond just coaching, which is why I wanted to invite you to share what you've done with both your purpose and your passion, Kilimanjaro Kids Education Foundation. How did that start? I mean, did you just wake up one day and decide well, I think I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro? Because if you did, I don't want to wake up that day.
No.
Climbing Kilimanjaro, I don't, wow. Okay, wow. I mean, I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, I want to save $100. Okay, but climbing Kilimanjaro, just a bit more. Go ahead.
It's a little high. It's a little high. I hear this from a lot of my coaching clients, and I'm sure you do too, Terri. I don't know what my why is. I don't know what I've been called for my bigger purpose on this planet. And people get really hung up and upset with themselves that they can't figure that out. Well, frankly, I didn't figure it out until I was on the mountain. So I wanted to go to Africa ever since I was a little girl, 6 years old. My grandparents lived near the St. Louis Zoo. We went every time I was there. It was free admission. I think it still is. And I fell in love with lions. And so I had this obsession. And then without getting too woo-woo, there are still small voices showing up in your life. And sometimes you pay attention to them and sometimes you don't.
Sometimes you don't. And you should, by the way.
And sometimes, for me anyway, God gets louder. So it started with lions when I was 6 years old. And then when I was in high school, my French teacher had been on a mission trip to Kenya. She talked about it all the time. And I just got obsessed with more information from her about what she did and what went on there. And then fast forward into the mid 2000s, one of my friends, her aunt, Safari K. Trotman, was doing a Make a Difference safari. And I thought, well, that's really cool. I go spend 3 or 4 days at a children's home, and then I go on safari and see lions like for real, not at a zoo, but out, like turns out literally like feet away from me and with open kill and all this kind of stuff. It was amazing. So that was happening. In 2011, I started taking much better care of myself physically. And my best friend, Donna, everyone needs a Donna, came into the gym one day and just said, I decided I want to climb Kilimanjaro before I turn 55. Will you go with me? Everybody needs a Donna in their life. And this ties back to coaching. And I'm going to circle back, Terri, so stay with me. You need someone in your life who will advocate for you and sometimes stretch you beyond what you ever thought. That was never on my radar. Doing mud runs was never on my radar. Climbing a 14er was never on my radar. And Donna is the person who has stepped in front of me and said, how do you know you can't if you don't try?
Wow.
What a notion. So I said yes to Kilimanjaro without even understanding what I was getting myself into. And then it was, oh, wait, that's in Africa, right? Oh, wait, that's really tall. Like, how tall is it? And it was a question after another. And then my brain starts going on, I want to do this Make a Difference safari, Now I want to climb Kilimanjaro. Why don't I mash it all together in one big trip, which is what I did. And so then I started inviting other people to go. And while I was on the mountain, I experienced the most servant-hearted, selfless, joyful people I've ever met in my entire life, in the porters that work on the mountain. And I asked them, because their life is very difficult, what's most important to you? As a coaching question, right?
Yes.
And
I was just going to make that comment about you coaching on the mountain, but go ahead.
I can't help myself. It's just,
We
it's
love
my
you.
wiring.
Yeah, I know.
Education is their greatest desire is to get their kids into private school where they can learn English, because once they learn English, the doors blow wide open. Swahili is literally only spoken in like 2 or 3 countries in the entire world. Kenya and Tanzania are right next door to each other. They both speak Swahili, but they can't go anywhere in the world. They can't do anything grand if they don't have this bridge. And then the education itself in private school is at a much higher level. All the kids get 2 meals a day during their school day. So I said, how much does it cost you guys to send your kids to private school? And it just went from there. $600 a year. Are you kidding me? What do we spend on private school in the United States?
What do we spend on shoes? Okay. I'm just thinking.
Precisely my point. So, people ask me, why don't you just help kids here? There are people here helping kids here, and they're passionate about that. I am passionate about helping these kiddos because they are the children of the people who literally altered my life on that mountain. So that's the path I chose. And you talk about God talking louder and louder. It took running me up to 18 or 19,000 feet and shouting it at me for me to get it. And then when I came home and told a friend, so I just was going to take care of one kid. And I told a friend about it, and she said, oh my gosh, I could do that too. So then we got a second kid. And then it occurred to me that God was saying, you know what, you're supposed to help a whole bunch of kids, not just 1 or 2. And so that's where the foundation was born.
And that's where the foundation came in. And I'm going to encourage everybody to go to Kilimanjaro Kids, KIDZ, for Fun Education Foundation on Facebook. There's some real faces there. I think the biggest challenge we have with philanthropy in this country is that we're never sure it gets to those kids. But you have got a remarkable team that is not only providing the education and the food and the spirit that they can outgrow where their parents were. Can I say that?
That's like exactly spot on.
And speaking about growing, there's also sustainable farming going on so they can ensure food. Tell us about that.
So one of the guys that was on the mountain, his name is Kleti Bani. He is passionate about permaculture farming, which is sustainable farming. And so once I got this foundation going and I thought, I need to help multiple kids, not one kid, then one of the porters, Pascal, said to me, you should build a school. Well, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Okay, yeah. Maybe I can do that. And then I found out about Kleti and the permaculture farming, and I went, wait a minute. If you build a school and you put a permaculture farm next to it, the kids can maintain the farm, grow their own food, and the sustainability accelerates. So I got behind Kleti's cause and helped him fundraise so that he could build out a brand new permaculture farm, which in less than a year, Terri, would blow your mind to see pictures of dirt and now pictures of like maturing trees with fruit actually growing off of them. And it's
amazing.
What do we do here? I can't grow a 10-foot box of vegetables. And he's using discarded water bottles as irrigation. He's cutting the tops off, filling them with water and sticking them down in the dirt. So we have a lot to learn from that too. But again, it's about passion, right? It was about discovering what matters to Kleti in this case, and then helping him get legs underneath him so that he could move forward. And
so we have schools now.
Well, that's part of the bigger vision, right? This is what happens when you get a little bit of vision.
Yeah. And then God
starts growing, and then it gets
gets
legs and goes in these places I never said I was going to build a school. And now I'm talking about 2 schools because the Porters on the Mountain live in two disparate cities. It would be too hard to bring all those kids together under one roof. And then why not put the guys to work at the schools when they age out of the mountain, because their bodies aren't going to hold out forever at 19,000 feet. So why can't the camp manager become a facilities manager? Why can't the chef become head of food services at the school? You know, there's all this translation from what they're doing to what they could be doing. And back to coaching, right? If we just get clear on what we're good at and what brings us joy and what fills us up, opportunities will continue to present themselves. So it's an incredible lesson at a very basic level.
I don't know about basic. I think it's incredible. I mean, you know, just because you like a lion as a kid and you get a stuffed one for your third birthday, and suddenly you're building schools and sustainable farming and these kids with the most beautiful faces. I would encourage you to go to the Facebook or go to the site, killerandkill.com.org, because they're real people. They're real young children who are thrilled. Can I say thrilled? There's one little girl, she's like this. She's so grateful. And I just have to say it's impressive. What's also impressive is your work with resuscitating star power. Now, for those people who have not been around real estate going back to 2000-ish, when did we actually start it? Because I was number 3. I was in the third group.
So Star Power itself was started in 1988.
That's
the
right.
Interviews launched in 89. So Steve Westmark and Joe Lakota were the first 2 people interviewed. They were interviewed in 88 and their interviews were released January, February of 89. So that went on until 2009. And there ended up being, over the course of the years, with multiple people on interviews, 360 stars, roughly.
Star Power. And I produced Star Power. We did a Star Power Stump the Stars for IRTV when that was part of it. And some of the stars have been friends forever, but it was one of the first sharing. And Howard Britton, which is, you know, the icon of icons, a former CRS instructor, and just a problem child. Let's just put it that way. He was so adorable.
Yes.
And Babs, his wife, but it was one of the first real communities of, I would say, competitors. I mean, we were all, you know, in our spirits of getting through a tough market back in the 80s and early 90s. And yet we helped each other with what we did, where we did it, and how it worked. And I mean, it was
what a concept
to think that sharing would be so ubiquitous and take off so that there were 300. Bottom line is Howard, of course, passed away. Star Power got sold. It changed hands or whatever. And now we're back to putting the band back together. And It's been fun to see the rejuvenation of what you've been able to do with Jana. Talk about how you and Jana got together on this, Jana Cottle.
Well, you know, what's funny is I went to work for Star Power in 1996 with the blessing of Kathy Russell, who was my star. I worked with Kathy on her team, and she actually introduced me to Star Power. And so I went to work at Star Power. Kathy met Jana Caudill and said, just call Amy over at Star Power. She wasn't even licensed yet, Jana. And Amy will tell you what you need to do. And so that's how Jana and I met, was over the phone in 1996 when she didn't even have her license yet. And she got the tapes, she listened to them, she implemented, and her career skyrocketed. I mean, she had a meteoric rise. So we developed a relationship very early on. I was telling her a couple days ago, I still have the very first handwritten note she sent me at Star Power. It was one of my very first to receive as a servant of the industry. And so it was really cool to see how she was progressing. And she would tell you herself, she's heard so many people lamenting the days of Star Power, and it's her 25th year in the business. And she decided to figure out how to redo it. And there's a whole generation of people that have never even heard of Star Power. A lot of them watching this program.
Yeah, I was just going to say they may not even know who Howard was, but when you go to when you search for Star Power, the Star Power stars, it will give you a great insight into some of the great work that Howard was responsible for. Well, I have to tell you, Amy, I know you're going to be leaving to go to Africa soon.
Machu Picchu, actually, this time, hiking the Salcantay Trail and climbing Machu Picchu. I am going back to Tanzania in December and getting to see all of the kiddos for the first time face to face. So I'm super stoked about that.
Well, I know that you can help. If you're watching this, if you have this in your heart, you can help. Realty Times is neutral on these kinds of things, but our goal is to bring resources to people they would not know existed. And if education is something you're interested in, visit KilimanjaroKids.org and see what's going on there, how we help people helping people regardless of where they are. And I want to thank you personally for your contribution to both coaching, because we know that when we can help somebody else achieve what they want, everybody gets what they want out of life, which is what we're here to do. What you're doing is Star Power to resuscitate some of the great work of Howard Brinton and those of us that were early in the game. I want to thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll join us again. Give us an update on the kids and what's going on with Star Power. This is Amy. What's the best way to reach you to find out more about all the projects, Star Power Coaching and Kilimanjaro Kids?
Amy at realestateMastersGuild.com. That's masters plural. And Kilimanjaro Kids is actually a .com also. So you can also reach me at Amy at KilimanjaroKids with a Z.com.
Yeah, well, I know we're going to do that. And I want to thank you personally for all you do for the significance, that part of life that you talked about earlier when we talked about coaching. And you said supporting like-minded real estate professionals who are looking for success, profitability, and significance. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us on
Terri.
Wisdom Network. We love sharing the great resources of women just like you. Join us again for another segment. If you're watching for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate in the Men's Room with Murph. I'm Terri Murphy. Thanks for joining us.